All right, Dad, we got such a cool interview for you today. We have Daniel Pinedo. Daniel is a longtime Marine. He exited the force with distinction in 2015 and he went into McKinsey. He went into some pretty significant professional environments and learned how to be a coach, a professional coach, and one that will really help to take you and I forward from a professional perspective. We talk about faith. We talk about leadership. We talk about how we can leverage our goals and our mission to move forward both in our professional life and just as importantly, if not more so, in our life with God, our wife, and our kiddos. If you're looking to move up and move forward in your professional career, you cannot miss my conversation right now with Daniel Pinedo. You are a career growth coach. You talk about the mantra is lead boldly, get noticed, unlock your full potential. You've talked to professionals all over the place, and you kind of have a pulse on what's happening in the business world today. So my first question, Daniel, for you is, what are the most egregious failures you see potential leaders making today?
Man, okay. I know we only have so much time. I think a big part is understanding leadership. Okay. Understanding the importance of leadership. I have my framework that I developed during the Marine Corps. I've used it in the Marine Corps when I coach college basketball, when I help businesses. Right now, when I coach individuals, I think part of it is like understanding the role of leadership, right? It's not just a title, it's a position. You're there to serve others. And I think, and that for me, the fundamental thing is realizing like you're there, it's not about you. Listen, serve, you're there to empower other people. And a lot of people get promoted because they're good at their job, so then they start to manage. But they weren't trained how to lead others, right? They were good at their job, and now they're promoted in a job where they're not doing their job, trying to help other people do their job, and there's a lot of friction there. So majority of people leave their jobs because they're unsatisfied with their bosses. We see that all the time. A flip of that can be, a lot of us went to college, and we go and we study under professors who were really good researchers, but no one taught them how to teach. It's kind of the same way, right? And so during my time in the Marine Corps, that was a big reason I wanted to go to the Marine Corps. I wanted the best leadership training there was. In the Marine Corps, if there's two people, one's in charge, right? And so I've taken a lot of that and I've used it in other areas. So I think a big problem, a big challenge with leaders is not embracing what a leader actually is there for, the importance of it, and then building the muscles. It's like anything else. You got to build the muscles, what being a good leader is. And part of it too is the imposter syndrome. You know, that comes. There's a usefulness for that. It tells you, I need to grow, right? Oftentimes we allow it to overcome us. So, and that's where things can be dangerous. But emotions are signals. That's part of my background. They're signals. What are the signals telling you? I think oftentimes people that are in a leadership position aren't getting help, aren't asking, aren't growing. One of the challenges with startups that I've seen is startups are made to grow quickly, but they can only grow as quickly as their leaders grow. And oftentimes leaders don't acknowledge or work on the type of personal growth they need to be able to help the company grow. So I'll pause there. But yeah, I'm very excited about this topic.
Yeah, it really is fascinating. And there's so many nuances, especially as people are kind of, you get into the corporate environment and then you work your way up to kind of that middle level, and breaking through that takes a lot of challenge. And I really do want to dive into that. Before we go there, though, Daniel, you obviously have a profound background, but who are you?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm Daniel Pinedo. I live in Dallas, Texas. I have 2 children. I've been married for over 11 years. Done a few things. I'll just be high level. Spent a lot of time in the Marine Corps. I coached some college basketball. I've done some business stuff. I built a space hardware startup. Did an investment banking internship when I was in business school. I spent some time at McKinsey Company, and then almost 2 years I've been running my own company. The goal is to help people become confident leaders through coaching. I do programs right now, and I do some one-on-one. I also do some fractional CFO work because I enjoy working. I work with a CEO. It's a multi-million-dollar international company. I really enjoy that. And then I still coach. So sports. So I'm a varsity basketball coach here at a local school in Irving, in the center of Dallas, and I enjoy that. So I am out of the Marine Corps. I miss it tremendously, but I still love to help people to grow, to feel confident, to go out there and lead. And I feel like if everyone can embrace the self-leadership, it'll change the world. So that's a little bit high level about me.
Yeah, I appreciate that. When did you leave active duty?
I left active duty in 2015, December 2015. I took a
Okay.
2-year break, went to business school, and then I went to the reserves, and I was in the reserves for several years. And then I resigned my commission August of last year. So it was painful. I dragged my feet, really wanted to do it. My body's just very much destroyed from my time. I did combat arms. So
Yeah.
my body's definitely really beat up. And it becomes more difficult with travel and family life. And my unit was in Los Angeles, so flying to LAX and just spending time in Pendleton. I enjoy dropping bombs. I enjoy being with Marines, but there's still part of me that still aches, right? I'm leaving, but that's how it works.
Yeah. Did you get your 20 years in?
I did not. No, I did not
just
get my
barely.
20 years, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I think there are a lot of people who want to, and just it doesn't work out, and that's gone now. I think there's
Really?
a quick thing. Yeah, they got rid of the 20-year system back maybe in 2015. Ish, so it's a blend. It's like they call it TSP. It's similar to a 401k. So the incentives aren't there. I was grandfathered in, but it came and gone. It didn't work out for me. So that's okay. But for new people, there's still great opportunities in the military to serve, to build yourself. I think it's a secret for a lot of kids. I work with high schoolers now, and I want them to know, hey, there's lots of options to get free college. There's lots of options to make the best out of yourself in your 20s. So anyways, that's another conversation. But yes.
Absolutely. Yeah, I feel the same way. I was a paramedic and a captain with Aurora Fire here in Colorado for about 10 years. And the camaraderie that you have with the people that you're doing those significant incidents with is profound. I know you talk about your brothers in the military quite a bit, and it's really made quite a difference on you, huh?
The camaraderie, it cannot be matched. And I think there's a few reasons. The ones that come top of mind is the level of commitment is unparalleled, right? To get in is extremely hard in the Marine Corps. We center it around the Eagle, Globe, and Anchor. It's different than other branches. Other branches put the rank up here. We put the Eagle, Globe, and Anchor, our insignia up here, on our covers and everything else. So one, it's a high level commitment to get there. Everyone earns that. You don't just get it. And I think the other part is because of the dangerous situation. I think that's the parallel with the firefighters as well. Like, you depend on them, on your left and right, for survival. And things happen, and that those bonds are extremely strong. When you are literally, like, your life is, you're handing it to them, but you also have that burden and that high call of duty to also be there for them. And I think that's just not being matched anywhere else, because we don't have that life or death scenario. I've coached a lot of sports. It's just different. It's a very different type of world, especially if you're out living in the suck for weeks and months and those type of things when you're out. Not all military is the same, but with my background, like, we'd be out there for weeks or months together, and you always have someone up with guns, patrolling or looking.
Yeah.
So that level of is very deep, and so it's something to cherish as you leave. And obviously, a lot of guys have struggles when they leave because they don't have that support system. Support systems are so important.
Absolutely.
And oftentimes we have more casualties after they leave the uniform because they can't find that same level of, whether it's the impact or purpose or the community or just processing stuff that's happened to them. So
I got to close my office door since my daughter came in to pee and then left it open. Sorry about that. The fun things about having the kiddos in the basement with you while you're trying to record. You briefly mentioned that. I think it's worth talking about too. I do a lot of health and wellness things, and we see in the fire, police, dispatch service very similarly to you in the military service. As soon as you leave that service, the purpose that one has in their life is always a significant challenge, and so many times it leads to substance abuse, challenges with their spouse and their kids, and then sadly to suicide. And it's such a profoundly higher level of suicide in those different respective capabilities and work areas as it is to the general public, and not having that drive to move forward. So anything you want to say about that? But I guess as well, how can people transition from being in that environment, especially if they're coming out of the military, to leveraging the zest for leadership and activity, but transitioning that into the corporate world, the professional world, to really take that and thrive?
Yeah, great question. So this is the way I think about it, is that there's parallels between those that in those services, whether it's firefighter like you or in the military, Marine Corps like me, and we'll call them civilians. I don't know what else to call them, right?
Yeah,
people who didn't
absolutely.
need that.
Yep.
We all need purpose and community. We all need it. But in those services, it's amplified, right? The community's handed to you. You worked hard to get it, but it's handed to you. And as you move, you always have someone there, and you need it for survival. And the purpose is massive, right? Purpose is massive. At the end of the day, honestly, the purpose is to protect your boys to your left and right of you, right?
Yep.
Like, you can put whatever you want on patriotism, but when you're out there and bullets are flying and things are exploding, at the end of the day, you care most about them, right?
Yeah.
But again, civilian and those that serve in those capacities, they're both human. They're human requirements to have purpose and to have community. The challenge is going to be when, I'll go back to the military, when they leave, the withdrawal is very strong.
Yeah.
And whereas a civilian might go from job to job and place to place, they don't have that same level of massive withdrawal because it's also part of the identity, right? And so we both need it, but it really hits us hard when we leave the service, right? The withdrawal is massive. So either way, we still need to find purpose and we still need to find community. If you want to be good, I'm speaking from my background too. If I want to be good at anything, I need to surround myself with people that think the same way, right? If I'm around people that are saying, oh, you can't do it, you shouldn't do it, it's a waste of time, those people aren't going to help me reach those dreams. I need to be with people that are already in there or also hustling, right? Mm-hmm. When I was trying to get in the Marine Corps, I surrounded people trying to get in or people that were already in, right? When I was trying to get investment banking, I was with all the other guys trying to get investment banking and talking to guys that were already in, right? We know this already in our careers. It should be the same thing in our personal lives. If we want to be really good dads, we should be around other people that are trying to be good dads with a regular cadence, that community, right? But the purpose is big too, and that's part of the thing that really drives me with the work I do. I think we all need a mission in life because the mission is something, in my opinion, so big you can't ever check that box, but you live for it and you strive for it, and everything should be kind of intertwined into that. And it helps you a lot with your decision making. Right? I think understanding who you are, your values, that bigger mission, it just helps give you a lot of clarity in your life. And it gives you a lot of confidence knowing like, I'm doing something important. I'm making impact. What I do matters. There's going to be a legacy behind me. So I think a lot of it comes into the mission. And sure, it's big because that's big in the military. We always have a mission. And I can break that up for you here in a moment. But I think the mission is so important because, like you just said, what's the purpose? Why am I here? What am I doing? I think as humans, we need to feel like we're doing something important and we're doing it with people we care about. And when you don't have that, it's hard. It's hard to get up. It's hard to keep going. And for those that have that gigantic withdrawal, so we see so many suicides, unfortunately. I think that's a huge component of it. So if I went just deeper in the mission,
please, yeah.
In the military, it's broken down to task and purpose. So we do our 5-paragraph order, there's 5 parts, and in the middle is the mission. And it's the shortest part, it's task and the purpose, right? We are going to take this hill, that's the task, in order to, that switches it, right, from task to purpose, in order so that the enemy can't take it. Or we can, establish a machine gun hill to provide support to whatever, right? And every single segment has a task and purpose, every mission, because the idea is, and I'm sure we can all understand this from life, you need to have plans. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail, but you know that all the plans are going to go out the window when the bullets start flying. Yep. So what the mission is, it's something so critical that if everything else fails, if you accomplish that mission, the task and purpose, then success. Then it's mission success, right? And so it is vital in the military that we have that. And again, it'll start big, and every single echelon, every single one will come down, right? The regiment gets one, they'll tell the battalions will tell the companies, then that's all the lieutenants telling the platoons, and then the platoons will tell their squad leaders their mission, and the squad leaders will tell their fire teams their mission, and then within the fire teams, the 4 guys, they'll have the mission, they'll know. Everyone has a mission. You got to break it down, right? You got to break it down. Now, when I go into life and how I coach people to try to find that mission, I look, again, like I said, I look more long term. I think in the military, it's like, get this hill, right? Where I think in life, it is a bigger check box that you cannot check. Because I think that gives you there's a lot of power in that. Good coaching isn't finding answers to questions. It's finding questions that you can't really answer, that you live through. And I think the same thing with the mission. It's so big, you can't really check that box. And because of that, your whole life can be oriented in that direction, right? There's a lot of satisfaction with doing that. Otherwise, they're smaller goals, and that's fine. We want those smaller goals so we can build up over time. But I think a life mission is different than other missions. I had a mission to get investment banking. I had a mission when I moved my family cross country to work with Juwan Howard at University of Michigan, and they cut my position the first week of school. And I had a mission to get back home. I was like, how do I get back from Ann Arbor, Michigan, back to I grew up in Corpus Christi, back to Dallas. And I ended up getting a job at McKinsey Company as an experienced hire consultant. But the mission there was very key. Like, I need to get home. I need to get home. I need to get a job. I need to leave basketball and get back to my business side. I need to get home. Those are important missions. But the life mission, that needs to be in the way I coach, the way I work with people, finding something. So they have that passion and that fire in their life. They use their gifts, right? It becomes contagious. We all like people that bring us energy, and we all don't dislike energy drainers, right? We want to bring that energy. And so I said a few things. I'll pause there.
So much good stuff, and I marked in there where you had such a great quote moving forward. When you talk about mission, and especially in the military, we use something similar called commander's intent, right? Mm-hmm. So you know what the intent of the strategic mission is right now, and if your commander goes down, you still know that is the hill you need to take, and you need to facilitate that so everybody still is moving toward that. So, and I think that's such a good point. When you talk about a mission in work and in life, it takes a very passionate, specialized person that's in the right job or position to say, this is my life's work. This job, this activity we are doing in this company is absolutely making a huge difference. If you are in that position, you're lucky. I feel like there's a lot of people that are in jobs just to make a paycheck, which is great. But that goes, Daniel, to your secondary point of, okay, if your job is not fulfilling you from a mission, passion perspective, what else do you have in life? Mm-hmm. And I think that's where definitely it transitions to, okay, can this be the means to the end of being a great father, participating in being a coach, and doing all of the other things to facilitate your mission in life? So it sounds like it's okay to have one or the other, ideally both.
Well, so that's an interesting point. You talked about work. Ideally, there's a perfect alignment in your work and your life mission. Mm-hmm. But because the life mission is so big, there's ways to, it goes back to the stories. We all have stories in our heads, right? Event X happens, and you and me can see it completely different, and hey, that's our perspective, right? Does it serve us? Does it not serve us? Is the story helping us, or is it hurting us? And we probably all been in jobs that were there just for the paycheck because it's temporary. We know what we were trying to get to is temporary. I remember when I finished school, I went to undergrad at University of Michigan, and I decided to do the Marine Corps program in my senior year. And I worked, and I was training, I was running 6 days a week. It was nuts. And I got told the week before school was over from my selection officer, so the captain that was trying to help me get in with my package, saying, we forgot a dental waiver. So you didn't even get evaluated. And the next evaluation isn't for another 6 months, but you're a strong candidate, and we think you should try again. And I'm like, I got to go through all this again for another 6 months, and I got to tell all my friends next week in graduation I have no job. Like, it was rough. And so I took a job. I went back home to Corpus Christi, Texas, and I found through connections, there was a marketing company that did billboards, and they're like, yeah, we'll give you, if you want to do marketing or you want to help us with our sales. And I was like, I want to work on the billboards. I want to be out there when it's 100 degrees, super high humidity, getting tough, working with the guys. Like, that's what I want. So I did that all summer long. And it was a temporary thing. I did it knowing there's something greater. And so it still aligned with my mission. The job didn't, because that's not what I wanted all the time, was fabbing, steel The supports for billboards and rolling up those billboards and almost getting blown off multiple times off,
Yeah.
60, 80 feet, 100 feet up in the air by the water there in the Gulf Coast. But it was still aligned with my mission at the time. And so I think part of it, a lot of it is what's the story you're telling yourself? Ideally, as you build your career, I think part of it is a lot of people don't know what their mission is, right? They just know, I'm happy, I'm not happy. As you start to move up, you realize there's never enough money until you realize how to manage your money. You just get promoted, you get more money, there's still more money, more problems until you fix the underlying issue, right? Because same thing with the job. People can jump around from jobs to jobs, but they haven't fixed the underlying foundation of what's my bigger purpose in life? What's my legacy that I'm trying to build? What's my lifelong mission? And then you can start finding some alignment, right? Then life becomes a little bit more play. And I'm not trying to downplay it, but it's a little bit more playful. We're at the age now where people are switching jobs all the time anyways, right? So it can be easier than a few generations ago. I think the time of people working 30 years for a company is it's not very common, right? So being able to find that life mission, understanding how what you're doing now serves you, whether it's your personal goals for business or moving up, building experience or finances, or if you have a family and the importance of the things that you're choosing to be important in your family, right? And it goes to a big component that I haven't touched yet in the way I coach. Part of it is to really have change. I think there's two critical things. One is you have to have ownership. You have to have ownership of what you have. You can't make changes if you can't own what you have. It's so easy to place blame here, place blame there, be a victim, right? We hear that term a lot. You go on social media, you can see just all excuses in the world. Until you own it, you can't merely make changes. You have to own it. And once you own it, saying, hey, not that I'm happy with the past, but I have peace that this is the best I did and here I am and I'm trying to do something about it, then you can create. Then you actually can do things. And it's hard. That's why coaches exist. That's why in athletics, players have coaches. And depending on what level, they have lots of coaches. Now in the NBA level, not only do they have their coaching staff from their team, but they'll have their own nutrition coach and their own strength and conditioning coach outside of the coaches already provided. Everyone has their coaches. In tennis, you see it, and it makes sense. They have a coach for a period of time, and then they switch because they want to learn something new, and they want different sets of eyes. So going alone it's a recipe for failure, kind of, to be very direct, because you need help. We all need help, but I think for the growth, again, you have to own what you have so that you can create what you want to create. And if you have that big mission, even it's a bad job, it's a temporary job, what story are you telling yourself? What's your big mission? How is this serving you now? Can you build alignment now? Is it breaking your boundaries? Is there opportunity to move? But I think having that big picture mission in life can really help alleviate a lot of the suffering that we have. I'll do another distinction here from my background. Pain, in my background, pain is biological, right? This is pain. Suffering is linguistic. It's like the words we tell ourselves, I'm no good, or I can't do this, or my job sucks. That's suffering from the stories we tell ourselves versus if we physically get hit, that's painful. And I think once we start to learn more of these distinctions, it can really enlighten us and open us to possibility. I think no one wants to be trapped in a cage. No one wants to be this is where my life is. Now I'm diving into more distinctions. But two moods that are really tough is resentment and resignation. And resignation is nothing will ever change. No matter what I do, nothing will change. No matter what they do, nothing will change. And then we don't want to act on anything, right? So I think starting to say, if I have ownership of what I have to take ownership, and I start to create, and I'm creating towards this bigger mission. I think it makes life a little bit lighter. You can have more grace for yourself and for others. Golly, for others, right? How can we have grace for ourselves? We don't have grace for others. And we start to create something that's special. And I think being dads, our kids learn from us. They learn so much from us. Forget what we say. They learn what we do. And the more we're around them, the more they learn from us. And the less we're around them, the more they learn from other people that you don't know who they are, right? So I'll pause there.
just on your last point, I mean, kids, yes, they learn from us, and they watch how we react during acute adverse situations. We get a flat tire. Do we lose our mind? Do we pull over? Do we look at it as an opportunity? That's very very interesting. Quickly back on your point of when you were pushed back the 6 months for the dental waiver. I think a lot of us in this day and age, we kind of get to the point of, woe is me. What am I going to do? And you took that as an opportunity. And I think oftentimes you just got to look, all right, God has a plan. Things happen for a reason. You were given that 6-month grace period to toughen up in the sun so that you could be, a little bit more prepared for the things that you're going to go through and see. So, yeah, I think we'll dive a little bit more into faith here shortly. One other point that I think is really cool that you mentioned, coaching. We need coaches, and it's always been you need a coach, especially for sports and things like that. But I think in this day and age in particular, Daniel, and you exemplify this, in order to buy back our time, in order to move to our intended goal faster, we can't just try to figure out on our own. There's so many things out there like ChatGPT and all these things that people are using to leverage to go faster. If we really want to be an actionable human that is moving forward in our thing that ChatGPT can't facilitate, we need to buy back our time and have coaches. So don't be afraid, Dad, watching this, to pay a little bit to get a coach to help you get to there faster. That way you can expedite. Life is short, man. And it seems like, a coach like you, Daniel, will help us to get to where we want to go to our mission a little bit faster.
And to add to that point, I think it's just easier with sports because I think people understand sports.
Sure.
Like you can have a workout plan. I coach basketball. I was a better football player, but I coach basketball. You can get a plan, and it might say, how do you get better in your free throws? It says, well, start adding layers, right? You start to add layers. So start shooting, try to make 5 in a row one day, try to make 7 in a row one day, try to make 10 in a row the next day. And you start doing that, but oftentimes you might just get better at a bad habit, and you start working harder. You work harder, work harder. When you have someone's eyeballs on you, they see things you can't see. All right? We can talk about the stadium's an easy example. The coach on the floor will see something different than someone in section 1, than someone's in the nosebleeds. The same event happened. We all have different perspectives. Okay? And the reason why the coach is on the floor is because they're very intimately there with them. Plus, they spent all the week preparing them, right? Sure, we're at section 1, we'll see things that the refs didn't see. We'll see things that the players should do because we think it. And if you're up in the nosebleeds, you'll see stuff too. I remember I was at game 6 when Chris Paul got hurt. The Warriors and the Rockets, back when the Rockets and the Warriors were at it. And you saw them get hurt, and you're just like, oh, no, the Warriors are going to win again now. Steph Curry's going to win again. And they did, right? But you're up there. You can see that, the little bitty bodies, because I was on the nosebleeds. You can still see things. But when the coach is there, it's intimate. They see it differently. Because I've seen so many players where they just work harder. They just work longer, and they keep hitting the wall. They keep hitting the wall. It's where having a different observer can see the world differently. How many times do we have a challenge, we talk to a friend, and they tell us something that we didn't even think. We're like, oh my gosh, the world just changed. All right, so that's the beauty of coaching. But I think the other part, because you talked about ChatGPT, same thing, it could give you a list. Do this, do this, do this. A key point with making changes, and it might just be a term we don't like, but we need to embrace it, is accountability. A good sports coach is going to keep guys accountable. All right? The reason why the Marine Corps works so well is we have high standards. And we embrace them. We want them. If we didn't want them, we'd go to another branch. Also, because the dress blues are really nice too. We have a lot of pride. But we want to achieve the hardest things. We have high standards. We know that going in. We buy into that. We commit to that. Commitment's a huge part of how I coach because I have distinctions in commitment. But the accountability is what makes sure that we reach those standards, right? And as a coach, we want progression. So I want to try to get them better and better and better, but I got to keep them accountable. And, a big feedback I had in my last course, because I did this career growth accelerator to help people in their careers, I kept telling them the accountability was the best part. The role playing was the best part. But they said, if you could just double your level of accountability, the growth would be that much better. Because we need it. If we really want to change, if we really want to achieve certain goals, we need help along the process, but the help just can't be like, oh, you need someone to tell you straight up, like, you're not fulfilling your own commitment. You're not fulfilling this or that, or you're not on track. We need to speed up even more. Someone to help you through that process, because then you believe in the process. You believe you can achieve that. So many times we do things and we don't believe we can even do it, and it's self-fulfilling. But the accountability is so important, and that's something that you just can't have unless you have someone there. Sure, you could ask ChatGPT, hey, ask me, like, did I fulfill my goals, right? Did I wake up at 5 like I said I would? Yeah, you could do that. But it's different when you're talking person to person, soul to soul. When you look at them and you understand them and you care for them, and you care for them so much you want to help them achieve their own goals, not for the sake of the goals, but because of that person. You want that growth. That's just hard to find anywhere else outside of a coach. So we're all in seasons. I think a big part of this is like, no one needs a coach, but if you want big changes, having a coach has got to be one of the most important fundamental things you have. Again, you go to athletes, it's there for a reason. Otherwise, they wouldn't do it. Even when they have parents that lead them, the parents are still coaching them, right? Like, no one goes. A good buddy of mine made a quote. He says, "No one accidentally wins the Super Bowl. Like, it's a lot of effort, dedication of our lifetime. How long their life is. A lot of people are involved. You don't accidentally win the Super Bowl." So I think a lot of it comes down, how important is it really to you? Have you declared that this is something very important to you and you're going to put in a lot of resources and time? And if it's not, then that's okay. That's okay too, right? But that's where the complaining comes in. Complaining usually is calling unsatisfaction for a commitment that wasn't really made, right? If you really want to make changes, you can make a declaration. This isn't good enough. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to work to that till it's complete, and there's some level of satisfaction. But oftentimes we complain because it was a request never made. It was a promise never made, right? Obviously not delivered. And so we get really good at complaining because that's what society has us doing all the time. Complain, complain, complain. Well, what are you going to do about it? Does it really mean something, or you just want to complain? And that's okay if you just want to complain. It's just kind of like going back to owning it. Just own it. It's not that important. So I'll stop there.
Jocko Willink, his book, Extreme Ownership, goes right into what you're talking about, right? Accountability. Take extreme ownership of what your task is. Mm-hmm. You will be successful. Kind of getting back into, the professional side of things. What is the kind of current state of the professional world today, especially when you're talking like the Fortune 500, as you see it?
Yeah, well, I'm not going to say anything that's surprising. If you're reading the journal, you probably know what I'm going to say. I think a big part is the uncertainty, right? There's a lot of uncertainty, whether it's going to be with what happens with tariffs or the economy, with the interest rate. There's just always uncertainty. And there's always going to be uncertainty. Maybe there's higher uncertainty right now because I think with what's going on with politics in the United States is trying to shake up the entire world system. And that big shake-up along with wars that are going around, it causes for uncertainty, right? Most people don't like uncertainty. I think there's a way to really deal with this. And it goes back to the personal level, right? If you have a big mission in life, if you know who you are and what your values are, I'll tell you what, it doesn't matter what industry, what job, what function, what country, you can still live out your values and your mission in life. And when you know that and you feel good about it and you're creating it, because we're not human beings, we're human becomings, we're constantly becoming who we want to be, then that adds a lot of clarity and adds a lot of certainty because you know what you stand for, right? And I think that building that kind of legacy is very freeing. That goes back to my commitment framework because I think it's super important to realize, like, when you're committed to something, it is very freeing. The T for me in commit is thankfulness, being thankful that you have something that you're focused on and you can let other things pass by. But in the world of uncertainty, that's where it falls in. And I will say, I talk to a lot of people that have been laid off. I've talked to some that are furloughed, which just sounds like a disaster. But those are tough situations, right? And I know what it's like to not have a job and scratching and crawling, like that situation when I was at Michigan with the basketball team with Juwan Howard, like trying to find something. But as I coach them, it goes back to who are you? What are your values? Knowing that people hire people. Yes, they screen the resumes, they screen everything. But when it comes to the hardest thing is getting that interview. Once you have an interview, you got to show them who you are. Don't show them who they want to be, because you might get a job that you dislike because you're trying to be someone else. But anyways, I'm going on a little tangent. The focus is there is uncertainty at a higher level now than there has been. But guess what? Every year there's always some level of uncertainty. We just know what we're pointing to it right now. It can be the global unrest with wars. It can be with the tariff situation. It could just be with just the political spectrum. There's always something. That's the thing. There's always something. So you might as well learn how to deal with it in a powerful way. What story serves you? Oh, I don't know this. I don't know now. I'm just really worried about it. And I know what it's like when I built a startup and there was a lot of certainty when COVID happened. It was really hard. We had to buckle down on things that were very, very important to us. And we knew things were going to hit. And things surprised us that we didn't anticipate. I think that was the hardest part. We're like, we're really going to protect ourselves in this because we're going to try to build resiliency. That was a big thing when I was at McKinsey. A lot of companies wanted to build resiliency to help them in the challenging times. But then we got hit, my startup got hit on something completely unexpected. And it happened within 2 days. And we had to figure out how to react. And it took us months to react to it. So it obviously doesn't solve everything because people still need jobs and they still need to be able to provide. And no one wants to, be laid off. But it goes back to that ownership. Well, what can you do? If you just give it all away, then you're going to have a lot of stress. You get a lot of anxiety, a lot of those emotions that are signals to us that something's not right, but we allow them to consume us versus using them in a way that can serve us. And I'm just, I go back, like, self-leadership is fundamental. Once we start to embrace self-leadership, the world will change. And it goes back to ownership. What do you want to create? And we'll go from there.
Let's get tactical if we can real quick. My personal story, I joined a Fortune 10 company about 8 years ago and from obviously the public safety sector and grinded. The mission was there. Everything that we were working on, great team, and I performed very well in bringing that mission to fruition. And one of the things that I look back on those 8 years and kind of kick myself is I had kind of just hoped that my performance would have been seen by my superiors and they would have elevated me commensurate with that performance. And being such a large company, it just simply didn't happen. Some of those things, the next week, the next month, things move forward. And I kick myself for not advocating for myself more, pushing for elevation and promotions more forcefully, if at all. And had I had the chance to do it over again, I probably would have done that, but then I wouldn't be talking with you right now, Daniel, right? So that kind of goes back to our initial point of the conversation is things happen for a reason. I'm standing here right now because of the decisions that I made. But that being said, for Dad, you watching right now, who's looking to move up, what guidance, what recommendations do you have to advocate for yourself to continue to move up within an organization?
Yeah, great question. This is something I do cover in my program, and I work with guys on this. So I will say I did learn a lot of this from McKinsey. This is something that was news to me because the Marine Corps there's a system in place, right? But in McKinsey, they made it very structured, and I'll break it down to 3 types of people. I think they kind of focus on 2, but I'll break it down to 3. So one is sponsors, one is mentors, and one is allies. I think these are important distinctions to make and to know what there are out there. I think part of it is understanding what is my network within the company and who are those roles. To kind of figure out what the needs are before just saying, who do I know, how do they fit? I think it's a lot of like, what do I have? But I'll start kind of more the bottom up. So the allies make sense. People like peers, people that have your back, you have their back. You know that if you're not in the room, they have your back. They care about your self-interest and you care about them and their growth. And they're important to have because you need to spend a lot of time with them to share best practices. Mentors are going to be someone who's not necessarily in your chain of command, but might be above you that has more experience that wants to help you. They care about you. You're one of those advocates, right? Another part of advocates, but like they want to see you succeed, and it's probably something that just really aligns. I had a mentor at McKinsey because he also coached college basketball, and so we were just the outliers. He really wanted to help me. Obviously, I had military guys that were ahead of me, and they wanted to help me too. I had the Hispanic network, and they also wanted to help me too. But sponsors is something a little bit different, and this is. I had a hard time. It was just different for me. I came from the Marine Corps. I'm not used to bragging. Like, that's what we don't do. We don't write books, right? Like, it's different background. With the sponsors, this is probably answers your question the most. Sponsors should be someone that's much higher, that has some level of decision making. But you have to understand what they require. I think that's important. I didn't really quite do that with the allies. Like, if you want someone to have your back as an ally, you need to have their back. They kind of require that. Right? Mentors, I think part of the requirement is they want to have some kind of feel-good relationship. Like, they're helping you. They want to see the stuff that they're coaching you on succeed. With sponsors, they need touch points. And it can be kind of awkward. And I think there's a quote that could be useful. Because I don't want to brag, but if I change the distinction or I ask a question or a phrase that might help me better, it's like, it's not bragging if you've done it. Right. And I think with sponsors, usually, and when I was at McKinsey, it's usually the senior partners. Like, they don't have any field of view with me, really. Like, we're so far removed. But if I don't tell them on a regular cadence of what's going on, they don't know.
Yep.
And I need to find people that are aligned. That saw me 20 years, like that's me 20 years ago, 30 years ago, right? And I want him to do well because one day he could be me, type thing. But finding specific people that have a lot of influence on your career growth or on the company, and having some kind of relationship where you check in with them on a regular cadence. This is what's going on. This is a challenge. Have you ever seen this before? It's a little different than the mentors, right? But you have to know what they need. They need checkpoints. You shouldn't be coming to them only when there's problems. You need to have some line of communication, even if it's short. I learned at McKinsey, I can get a lot done in a 10-minute meeting. That was news to me. And before, I always thought it had to be like 30 minutes to an hour. You don't know how many times I book calls. I say, hey, can I grab 10 minutes of your time? And it would literally be from 9 to 9:10. And we'd figure it out in the first 8 minutes. And then, half times they showed up 5 minutes late already. And I had 3 minutes or 5 minutes, right? Because partners or senior partners are very busy. So building sponsors is very important in our work life. Identifying those people, having those touch points, and asking them, hey, do you think you can be a sponsor? Now, in McKinsey, it was a requirement. You wouldn't get to certain promotions unless you had sponsors because there was votes, and each senior partner, I think, had like 5 votes, 5 different people they would nominate. So it became more structured. But other companies aren't necessarily going to be like that. But it's still important to reach out. It's still important. You got to remember, everyone that was there, they were in your shoes at some point. Even if it was at a different company, they were still in your shoes at some point. I think that helped me so much. I went to officer candidate school, and you're grueling. You'd be lucky to sleep more than 3.5 hours. You're hardly eating. You're suffering. And then they have these guys come in, these captains come in and speak to you, and you see like the scrawny pilot and be like, if he made it, I can do it too. And yeah, I used to tell myself that all the time, and I made it through just fine. But it's kind of the same thing. Like, all those people started somewhere. They all started somewhere. And guess what? They all still have to put their pants on one leg at a time like you did this morning. Okay? So finding people that have that alignment, but you have to know what they require too. They require little touch points, some kind of cadence. And I think that can really open up doors, because we don't like to be feeling like, again, the resignation. Nothing's going to change, right? And it's not bragging if you've done it. And this is part of how the system works. If no one sees it, then did it happen?
The only thing I would add to that is especially on the sponsor side, there's a lot of movement, especially in big companies, to where you could create that relationship with the sponsor, and 6 months, a year, 2 years later, they're moved to a different organization within the company. So no, they're no longer in the ability to be your sponsor necessarily, or have authority to help out. Or they're moving on to a different company in total. I've probably had 4 or 5 sponsors in the big company, and I had the opportunity, I had the relationship, but I didn't do what you talked about, Daniel. I didn't check in enough to give them an opportunity to facilitate that elevation, and then they moved on. And at that point, if they're retired or they're no longer a part of that organization, then the sponsor's gone, and then you got to try to find a new one, right? So jump in 2 feet. Go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, and that's a clear point. I'll bring in. So I did controlling for aircraft to drop bombs in the Marine Corps, JTAC or ATACP for those that know it. We have a saying as we try to get ready for an attack. In general, there's exceptions, but in general, pilots don't own their ordnance. A ground controller does, and they speak for the ground commander. So I'd be, with all these radios and everything in the bush, but I'd control the aircraft. So the saying was, 2 is 1 and 1 is none. So I would try to avoid an attack where there's only 1 round available. I would always prepare for a second round if there are 2 of the same rounds, or a backup round. I'd say, hey, be prepared for a follow-on with rockets and guns. Or if I'm going to use one ordnance, have another ready. Because there's so many times that happen where they'll come and there might be an issue with the pod, targeting location pod, or the round doesn't release or something. And there's all these conditions necessary. There's grunts or crunchies or whatever trying to move, and they can't move until conditions are set. And so I don't want to be the biggest cost. So the idea, again, is just a phrase. 2 is 1, 1 is none. The idea is don't just have 1. 1 is almost the same as none. And if you only have 1 sponsor, I'm wrapping it back again. If you only have 1 sponsor, you almost have none, because that person can leave. And so I think part of that is always nurturing new relationships. We all have phases in our lives. They have phases too. And if they're up, they usually move. They can move very quickly. Sometimes they can carry you in a great direction because you have a great sponsor, and they move up, and they trust you, and they see you down there, and they want you along with them. But as you said, sometimes they go other departments, they go to different companies. So we should always be nurturing. Again, see our network kind of field and say, I need at least, right? At this point, it's great. At least 2 sponsors, at least 2 mentors, and several allies. Kind of build that up. And then you can say, well, what do I have? And you fill in those roles, but you're always on the lookout to nurture new relationships. If I was going to an event at the McKinsey office in Dallas, and I had that 1 sponsor, it doesn't mean I only go talk to that 1 sponsor. I'm going to go talk to the other senior partners. I'm going to go get warm with other people. I want them to know my face primarily, and hopefully my name too, because things change. So I think that's a great point.
Yeah, if you take nothing else from this entire conversation, I think that's one of the bigger ones. If you want to move up professionally, get that sponsor, nurture the relationship, and it's 2-way, right? Don't just expect them to support you for no reason. Show your worth, help them, and that's good. I know you're giving me a great amount of time, Daniel. I've got a couple more questions. You've talked quickly, and this is just kind of on leadership, and I guess it'll just be kind of a primer for you, but the 3 layers of leadership: lead yourself, lead other people, lead leaders. You want to kind of expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, it's as simple as that. That's the way I preach. All right.
Yeah.
I think that those are the 3 levels. Can you lead yourself? Can you lead others? Can you lead leaders? And leading yourself is fundamental. Leading yourself is as simple as getting up in the bed in the morning, taking care of yourself. I think a lot of people don't take care of themselves, whether it's some of the basics: hydration, food, what quality food, exercise, working on their spiritual life. I mean, some of those things, they start to lose respect for themselves because they can't even hold their own promises to themselves. There's a whole array of that, right? But I think those are the 3 levels, because the key, again, the world will change if we all can lead ourselves. Learn that we can lead ourselves. We have choices, okay? It's not woe is me. It's what am I going to do about it? Own, create. The next step is going to be leading others. And as fathers, we're always leading. Like we're just naturally leading. We have children, right? We have a family. And if we work, we're still leaders. I hear that a lot. Well, I'm not in a leadership position. What is real leadership? Leadership is having influence on other people to do things. We all have influence. And so whether you think you're a leader or not, you're still having influence. You just might be a bad leader because you don't feel like you can lead yourself, but you're still having influence on other people. And I think learning how to lead others is critical. Leading leaders, I would say, is the 3rd one, and that's what we excelled at in the Marine Corps. That's the structure. We're always leading. If there's 2 Marines, one's in charge. And that's why we do what we do. We're the smallest force. We have the smallest budget. We have all the leftovers from the other branches, but we're lethal. We're the first ones to fight. That's just what we do. We're the expeditionary force. We go in, we take care of it, we hand it off to the Army and the Navy and the Air Force, right? So the leading others is fundamental because I want them to be better than I ever was. I want to empower them to take over and be a better leader than I am. And that's a hard mentality, I think, a lot of times, because we fear for our job or we want to look good. Well, then we're losing the fundamental of what leadership is. So those are the three levels that I preach. I think the world will change once we start acknowledging that and the impact we have on others.
How does faith in God come into this whole picture?
How deep do you want to go? High level, we've all been called to be stewards in this world, right? All you have to do is look at the book of Genesis, depending on what your faith background is, and just seeing God gave the commission to go and take over the world, to produce and be fruitful and multiply and be stewards of this world. That's a leadership task. Like, to be a steward, we have to lead. We have to take care of that. And as we have roles, whether we're husbands or wives or children's or consecrated or whatever we're doing, we still have impact on other people. And so what we do matters. What we do matters. And I think we should constantly be growing in ourselves to be better for ourselves, to build more respect for ourselves, but also realize the impact we have on other people. So part of that's what we talked about in the beginning. What's my purpose, right? Where's my community, right? You're either growing or you're kind of dying, right? So I think being a leader, that self-leadership, leading others, is fundamental to a lot of different faiths, especially with Christianity. Right? We've been given a commission. And if we do those things along that mission that we've been given, then we find grace from God. We feel peace. And I think people want peace at the end of the day. Did I do a good job? Did I build something worth the value? Do I feel good when my life ends? Those are very powerful questions, right? So happy to go deeper if you'd like.
Yeah, I would love to do an entire podcast just on faith with you. I've talked about this before. I've probably done 50, maybe 60 podcasts with people as great as you, Daniel. And I would say 98% of all of them, faith is a core and central part to who they are. And I think that is showing me, at least, the optimism for our future, because there's a lot of people like me who just maybe a year and a half ago finally found Jesus and faith, and it has given me such a higher purpose in life for my family, for my wife, for my professional acumen. It's pretty profound. So thank you for that.
You said something important. It give you more purpose, and if you start joining whatever group it is, church gives you community, right? Those are two things we talked about earlier. So important.
How can a dad be both a very awesome professional leading people and be a great husband and father at the same time?
It's a great question. And I don't think I think we make it harder than it should be. I think, so I'm big on striving for excellence. I come from the Marine Corps, right? Striving for excellence in everything you do. I think that's part of what the Great Commission was from Christ, to go out and be amazing. Be amazing what you do. Use your gifts. Don't put them in the ground. Don't waste them. Go use them. That's part of loving God and serving other people, right? So being excellent in everything you do. But I think it also goes back to what we talked about earlier. If you have that big mission, if you have clear values, then you have clarity. You have confidence. You lead your life in excellence. And you understand the impact you have in your work and the impact you have at your home. They should be aligned. They should not conflict, right? Because otherwise you're out of integrity. What the outside and the inside is not aligned. And that to me is that to me is what integrity is. I know we can define it different ways. But to me is to have alignment in what you do, what you think, what you feel, understanding this whole sphere of how the body, moods, emotions, and language all connect. That's how you can be excellent at work and at home.
I've got two more questions for you, sir. I think these are the most important ones. Before we do that, though, as we kind of land this plane, where, Daniel Pinedo, can people find you?
So my website's the easiest way is my name, Daniel Pinedo. Last name is P as in Papa, I as in India, N as in November, E as in Echo, D as in Delta, O as in Oscar. LinkedIn, but yeah, just look me up. You can find my website as I continue to build. I think the challenge for all of us is, how can I serve? How can I serve people best? And so it's been fun on the entrepreneurial path because I'm still building, and I'm very excited. I'm doing this Career Growth Accelerator right now to help people in their career, but it's all the foundational stuff. A lot of stuff that we talked about today. I mentioned this is in the course, because I want people to find their values, find who they are, build the confidence, and all that shows up in work. All that shows up in the home. The majority of challenges, I saw this before I left McKinsey, I think that the percentage they gave was 80 to 85% of issues at work stem from the home. They're amplified at work. And so, yes, I work with people in their businesses, in their lives and their careers, but a lot of the stuff is fundamental stuff, right? And that's where it's fun, because I try to help them solve their challenges, reach their goals. So that's the answer to that question.
Yeah, and we talked about it. Dad, get yourself a coach. And Daniel is, if you're not convinced by this, I sure am. Yeah, definitely look you up. All right. Daniel, what's the best bit of advice you have for a husband, a father, and professional to level up and do just a little bit more for the rest of this year?
To me, it's going to be the foundational stuff. If I could work with someone and I only spent a few minutes with them and they had that question, how to level up as a father and a work, I would take some time on saying, who are you? Let's go deep in who you are and what are your values. Values help a lot with decision making. Oftentimes we're worried about this, we're worried about that, but if we're very clear in our values and we be very aligned, it gives you a lot of clarity, and you show up that way. How can you have integrity at home and at work? Know these values. Know these values. What are they? And it's not just words. It's distinctions. When I do this exercise in my program, it's fun because sometimes it's a laundry list or whatever comes up in their mind. Oh, this sounds good too. And then I have them spend time defining them and selecting. I usually try to get 2, 3, maybe 4. Once you have too many, then it's just too many. But then what are the distinctions? What do they look like? What do they mean to you? And then I have them practice telling people. I tell them, go and share your values to someone. Go share your values to someone. I had one individual got laid off during during the course, his 12-week course, and we had some extra conversations, me and him, during the course time, and I really encouraged him to talk about his values. He ended up talking about it in all his interviews and got 3 job offers before the 12 weeks. And he's like, if I wouldn't have done that, I felt like I was showing up purposefully. I wasn't faking it, and he attributed to that. So I would spend time on that. Absolutely.
Last question. I call it my diamond advice segment. I ask this of everybody that I have the honor of joining me. It's actually Graham Cochran, so the mastermind that you and I are in together. He calls it his golden rule. So if you've ever watched Graham Cochran, super cool dude. So I took this and I stole it from you, Graham. Sorry, buddy. But diamond advice. You got 2 kiddos, so you have a 4-year-old daughter and a 9-year-old son, correct?
I do.
All right. Hypothetically, they're out of the house. Those 18 seasons are up. Daniel, you've taught them all the great lessons that you know, but they've forgotten everything. Everything except for one piece of diamond advice. What do you want your 2 kiddos to take with them the rest of their life?
I got a great answer, and I know it. And I talk to them. I talk to my son on a regular basis. There's one thing that I care about that he knows. And sometimes I ask him before he goes to bed. And the question is, why do I love you? I ask him that on a regular basis. My daughter she's picking it up, but my son understands. Why do I love you? And he knows the answer now. He says, because I'm your son. Is it because what you do? No. Because what you don't do? Your grades? No. Why? Because I'm your son. That's why I love you. And I want him to know that. And the follow on is telling him that no matter how much I love him, God loves him more, right? But I want him to know that because life has its ups and downs. And if he leaves and things go good or bad, I want him to know at the end of the day that I love him. He can always come to me. And if that's the only thing he takes away, then mission success.
One of the things I always tell my 3 kiddos, any chance I get, is, there's basically 3 groups of people that we respect the most in this world. And I tell them the one group that you would respect the most is those who have served in the military, those who have either given their lives or have signed up to do so to protect us. The next is police officers, and then firefighters, of course, right? Or the third. But I say that to say thank you, Daniel, for serving our country, for keeping us safe, and for now doing what you do to guide us forward in our lives. You're a special man. You got a bright future. I'm excited, and I hope you do very well, and I hope you come back. Thank you for joining me.
I'd love to come back. And I thank you too, because I think it takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of time and effort. This stuff isn't easy, and you've been doing this for a while, doing the podcast and finding good people to share the message. And I think a lot of people we hear of entrepreneurs, and then there's the entrepreneurs, and you're doing something about it. So I really appreciate you and have a lot of respect, and hoping this continues on. And I hope people listen. Right, people spend the time to listen, and that's how we get better. We got to keep sharpening and growing. So I appreciate what you're doing.
Agreed. Sir, you have a good day.
Thank you, Ryan. You too.